Shireen, you were talking about this earlier. We'd mentioned Jacob Zuma and his own rise to power, and what's happening with Usman Sonko in many ways mirrors what happened with former President Jacob Zuma here in South Africa, when in the middle of his rape trial, a lot of people embraced him as a replacement for former President Thabo Mbeki because it meant a break with neoliberal orthodoxy in South Africa. At least that's what people thought back then. And in this case, people support Sonko till the end of the earth because they think it means a break with dictatorial rule, as Rama was explaining now. So I'm wondering, is this a chronic pattern of African politics that demands for gender justice are always put it against something else, or always recede in the background in favor of something else? They have to wait until a certain thing happens. They have to wait until we can overcome neoliberalism, or they have to wait until we can install democratic change in Senegal. And if this is a chronic pattern, I mean, why does this always keep happening?
Always the dream deferred, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly African. I'll just say that. I think that women's struggle for equal personhood is a global problem. I don't think African movements and African men are any worse or more pathological than anywhere else in the world. It has always been difficult to make the kinds of arguments that Rama is making here, right? About the worth of women, about the ways in which women's bodies matter, the whole foundation of our societies across the world. And what was the separation of women's labor and the appropriation of their reproductive work, and its devaluing, and the whole process of naturalizing, for example, certain kinds of family relations as normal and outside of commodity formation, just hid what is at stake for women and women's bodies. And I think Rama put it very, very well. I think all over the world, we see that inability to understand women's demands as of worth and of value. So, feminism is an ongoing attempt to deal with that. And it has more and more begun to show how that dispossession of women from their selves, their bodies, their worth, how much that is a violent process rooted in all kinds of violence that was mostly invisible and has been made visible by feminist movements across the world. So, I mean, I would just say this is not, I know that it's often, this idea that Africa is worse. I don't think it is worse. I think we're in a moment of intense confrontation between those different logics, but there have been similar moments in other parts of the world as well.
Rama, do you want to quickly just respond to that particular question? This kind of, why is there always this trade-off?
Yes, I believe because there is one. For me, there is something that sums it up quite well, which is adverse incorporation. When you were talking about inclusion earlier, I prefer to talk about adverse incorporation in all those spaces, whether it is in politics, whether it is in the economy, whether it is even how we manage our households, or whatever the term we use. For me, it's adverse incorporation, that we are not totally included nor totally excluded. And I believe it gives us also a powerful political tool to articulate these dimensions. And I also echo what Shireen was talking about. My research is on, and I will anticipate on William's next question maybe. My research is on large-scale land acquisitions and providing a feminist critique or analysis of those investments. And what we find often is that there is a combination of capitalist patriarchies, and paternalism, combining what is happening within the household with what is happening within the factory, treating the factory as the house of the paterfamilias. So I think we need to repoliticize those questions, stop treating them as separate, but bringing them together in order to have this type of intersectional or critical feminist analysis. And I also believe and that's something I've seen in my research. What we need is also to recognize the agency of the workers, of women, whether it is within the family, within the factory, within institutional organizations. Recognize their agency, recognize their ability to choose and to decide for themselves, even though we also need to take into consideration the larger structures of oppression that exist. So for me, it's a question of repoliticizing, but also moving from the weapons of the weak, which is one of the crucial expressions that we use in agrarian political economy, to the weapons of the organized. And I also believe in the power of unionizing, in the power of coming together and strategizing and conspiring in order to fight those multi-layered structures of oppression.